if one day you woke up and your world had gone dark? Suddenly, things and experiences that were essential to your life before are out of your reach, and simple joys, like video games, are no longer designed with you in mind. My name is Jenna. I studied game design engineering at WITS, and today I want to talk to you about accessibility in video game design, specifically about how game developers create games for players with visual impairments. Disability is something that can happen to anyone at any point in someone's life. This means that one day you can suddenly find yourself unable to access things and experiences that you once loved or relied upon. Accessibility is so important in design because ideally we don't want our creations to exclude anyone. Several game development studios have tackled visual impairments in gamers in really interesting and innovative ways that I would like to discuss. I want to focus on mainstream games that have incorporated accessibility into their design, but I want to mention a couple of games that were developed without any graphics and are completely audio-based. A Blind Legend is an audio-based game by Dewino. This is a completely graphics-free game. It was made with 3D audio technology to create an environment navigable entirely by sound. The Veil, Shadow of the Crown is another almost completely audio-based game. It has a few visuals, but the mechanics of the game are developed such that it is playable completely with audio cues. While it's amazing that there are studios who are willing and passionate enough to create gaming experiences tailored for blind players, gaming should ideally be accessible in the mainstream as well. So, let's take a look at some mainstream games that were developed with accessibility features for the visually impaired. The Last of Us Part 2 by Naughty Dog is possibly one of the most accessible mainstream games ever developed. It features over 60 different settings dealing with accessibility and was designed to be accessible from the very start of development. There are template accessibility settings for blindness, deafness, and motor disabilities. These template settings are recommended settings for players. However, the game experience is just about completely customizable for a player's unique situation. For blind players, the development team designed the mechanics in such a way that audio cues can help a player navigate the entire game from start to finish. The accessibility menu in The Last of Us Part 2 also includes an audio cue glossary, where players can browse through all of the audio cues in the game and learn them, or come back to reference them during gameplay. Not all people with visual impairments are completely blind, and Naughty Dog has designed for them as well. For players with low vision, there are several high contrast modes to change the colors of everything on the screen to be easier to see. The user interface can be scaled as large as the player needs if you have difficulty reading small text. The game also included graphics modes for several types of color blindness. From what I've read in accessibility reviews of this game, it is 100% accessible to every single player in every single way. And for that, it is an amazing feat of accessible game design. Now, I want to talk about another game that had great advancements, but poor execution in terms of accessibility for players with visual impairments. Street Fighter 6 is a fighting game by Capcom, with several mechanics and settings around accessibility for blind players. It has audio cue settings for distance between opponents, different attack types, health and power gauge levels, and almost every single sound level is customizable, from footsteps to attack sounds to music. The gameplay mechanics for Street Fighter 6 also include a dynamic fighting mode, where the buttons will map dynamically to fighting moves depending on the state of the fight, making players with difficulty seeing attack combos and menus still able to perform complex moves. However, after designing all of these amazing features for blind players, Street Fighter 6 released without any sort of menu narration. This means that a blind player will have a fantastic time once in a fight, but getting there will be extremely difficult and will require a sighted person to provide assistance. It's amazing how so much consideration and at the same time so little can be applied to the accessibility design of a game. In contrast, let's look at a fighting game that was designed with a little more consideration towards players with visual impairments. Mortal Kombat 1 by NetherRealm Studios is a reboot of the popular Mortal Kombat fighting game series. Menu narration is turned on by default when you launch the game. Mortal Kombat 1's accessibility features include narration for all text in the game, menu and otherwise, audio descriptions for all cinematic scenes, fatalities, and special moves, as well as audio feedback that can be added for dodging, blocking, attack types, distance between fighters, arena edge proximity, and health levels. There are separate sound level controls for just about every sound you hear in the game. The cinematics, music, announcer, ambience, dialogue, sound effects, and individual effects noises are customizable over a variety of categories. The audio design in Mortal Kombat 1 is so incredibly done that even if you have no visual impairment, you'll be able to appreciate how much care and detail is given to the sounds in the fights. So, everyone can experience Mortal Kombat. Now let's see if everyone can experience being a superhero and talk about Insomniac's Spider-Man 2. There are several accessibility options for players with visual impairments and other disabilities. The difficulty level of the game is extremely customizable. Enemy health, damage, and stealth awareness can all be adjusted to a player's needs. The game's puzzles can also be simplified, and there's an auto heal feature where you can set the game to automatically begin healing your character when your health gets to a certain percentage. These accessibility settings are important for a game like Spider-Man 2 that comes with a plethora of mechanics where any can make the game unplayable for certain people. Being able to customize all elements of the gameplay is a really important part of accessibility design. For players with low vision, Spider-Man 2 does a great job. There are several high contrast settings to choose from. The colors of the characters can be changed, the UI text can be scaled to any size, and there is a screen reader available for all UI and dialogue text. However, while these options are great for players with low vision, Spider-Man 2 is not accessible completely to blind players. Navigating the city of New York with audio alone is next to impossible in this game. But from seeing how advancements are being made in video game accessibility, hopefully Insomniac's next installment will be even more accessible to players with visual impairments. After looking at all of these games, with all of these accessibility features, there is clearly one winner in terms of design for people with disabilities. So we can look to The Last of Us Part 2 to answer the question, how do we design for accessibility? And the answer is incredibly simple. You ask people with disabilities what they want and what they need from your product. The development team for The Last of Us Part 2 consulted with different deaf, blind, and motor disabled players on the design of the game from the very beginning of development. This care given to accessibility led to the creation of a game that is considered the best game for accessibility ever made. Accessibility should be a core part of design throughout all stages of development for it to be inclusive, not just an afterthought. Thank you.